Hey, welcome to a new video. In this one, I'm going to talk about a relatively new feature in GrapheneOS. That is the option to install a sandbox version of Google Play Services and the Google Play Store. This supposedly alleviates the alleged security concerns when using microG and signature spoofing to mimic Google Play Services on other alternate Android operating systems. So what is Google Play Services? Well, it's a background framework heavily integrated into stock versions of Android, found on phones that you would buy directly from a network provider or the manufacturer. I'll stress the word integrated, so trying to remove these system apps yourself can be difficult and sometimes lead to significant operating system problems and crashes. Play Services is a highly privileged application, meaning it has access to a lot of data and activities on your phone. It's closed source, so it's unlikely anyone outside of Google knows exactly what data is being collected and how often, albeit it's a lot, as recent studies have shown. I've got a link to a few of those in the description if you want to check those out. The Play Store allows you to download, purchase, and install apps, as well as make license checks on apps that you paid for. It also needs you to sign into a Google account, which might be tied to your name depending on how you set it up, especially if you've attached a credit card to the account. Many popular apps found on the Play Store need Play Services to provide additional functionality, like instant notifications and low-power, non-GPS based location services. Without Play Services, a significant number of those apps won't work as intended and might even crash. Okay, back to the sandbox versions of these applications. To find these, go to GrapheneOS.org, click on Features, and page down to the Compatibility layer link. So here's a full explanation of Sandbox Play Services, as well as some of its limitations. So I'll summarize that information here. First, Sandbox Play Services are not integrated into the operating system, and it doesn't receive any special permissions or privileges. You can install and uninstall them essentially as you would most apps on your phone. Unlike stock Android, GrapheneOS only coerces Play Services in the Play Store into running, and it doesn't rely on any invasive integrations of these apps. The developers recommend that users set up a dedicated secondary user profile and install Sandbox Play Services into that profile. The idea is that your primary user profile would be where most of your day-to-day activities on the phone would occur, and as such, most of your apps would be installed and personal data saved. The secondary profile won't have access to the data or activities from your primary profile. It would only contain a few closed-source apps, say for ride-sharing or banking, that require Play Services, the Play Store, and Internet to function. If your closed-source apps don't need these, then I would recommend to install them using Aurora Store. It doesn't require you to sign into a personal Google account, and then you can use Graphene's built-in firewall to block network access unless there's some important functionality in the app that requires it. By blocking network access, that means even if the app tracks you and collects data, it won't be able to send it anywhere because its access to the internet is cut off. I know some people have set up a work profile using apps like Shelter or Insular instead of using a secondary user profile. The GrapheneOS developers mention there is less data isolation between a primary profile and a work profile as compared to a primary profile and a secondary one. That, and when I use a secondary profile, I can easily transfer files between my phone and a personal computer, whereas with a work profile, it's a bit more difficult. So onto the limitations. The developers acknowledge there are still some app compatibility issues when using Sandbox Play Services. Apps that need a special or a high level of access to your phone's hardware likely won't work. So a good example of this is Android Auto. Banking, financial, and many apps that allow you to transfer money are really notorious for compatibility with alternate operating systems like GrapheneOS. And this issue also affects other operating systems like CalixOS and LineageOS if you have microG installed. Many of these apps have anti-tampering mechanisms or use Google Safety Net service to test the integrity of the app and the operating system. When these checks occur, they detect the app is running on a non-stock version of Android and then refuse to work. So in a nutshell, some apps will work with GrapheneOS only, some will require you to install Sandboxed Play Services, and some won't work either way and force you to use a stock version of Android. Unfortunately, there's no comprehensive list of apps that will work with alternate Android operating systems. The closest I found is a crowdsourced database called Plexus, and that's linked to in the show notes. You can use that, or just install the app yourself to see if it works. Okay, on to installation. So for this video, I'm using a Pixel 3 AXL with the October 8th, 2021 release of GrapheneOS based on Android 11. I've changed the wallpaper to blue so you can tell that I'm in the primary user profile. The first thing I'll do is set up a secondary profile in which to install Sandboxed Play Services. So to do that, I go to the app drawer, Settings, System, Advanced, and Multiple Users. Here you can see the primary profile, which is named Owner, and a guest profile. I'm going to set up a dedicated profile for the installation, so to do that, I'll select Add User and click OK. Here I can name the profile, so I'll call it Sandbox. By default, secondary profiles can connect to the same Wi-Fi networks as the primary profile can, but can't make phone calls, send SMS messages, or connect to cellular data. I'm going to assume that the apps you're going to install in the secondary profile need cellular data access, so to change that, I can enable the Turn on Phone Calls and SMS feature. In addition, I want to be able to install apps into the secondary profile, so I'll leave this toggle unchanged. Now I'll switch to the Sandbox profile, and I'll have to do some initial setup. Okay, so I'll page through these. So the first one is setting up your language. The second is location services. The third and fourth will be security, so initially a fingerprint, and I'll just skip this. And your PIN or your password, and again I'll skip that. I'm not going to restore anything from a backup, skip it, and then I'll start. Okay, so now the secondary profile is set up, and I'm going to do one more thing and change the gesture navigation to 3-button, which is something I'm more familiar with. The next thing I'll do is download the Sandboxed Play Services APK files from the GrapheneOS website. I need to install them in the order presented here. So there's 3, there's com.google.android.gsf, com.google.android.gms, and com.android.vending. So it's easiest to do this by using the built-in Vanadium browser on the phone, so let's switch back over. And select Vanadium, and go to the Graphene website, and Features, and page down to Compatibility layer. Okay, so here you see those 3 links again. Okay, so I'll click on the first, which takes me to the directory, and there's a file in here called base APK, which I'll download and install. So I'll have to give Vanadium permission to install unknown apps. And then I'll install Google Services Framework. Okay, that's done. After installation, I'm going to delete the base APK file because I don't need it anymore, and because the next APK that I'll download is also called base APK. So I don't want to confuse them. So let's do that now and just delete the file. The second file we'll download is for Google Play Services. So com Google Android GMS. And again, go to the directory and download base APK. This one's a large file size, so I'll speed this up. Okay, this one's done. So again, I'll delete that base APK file. So the third one is com Android Vending, which is the Google Play Store. You can see that there are 5 APK files in this directory. Unfortunately, I can't install them as single APK files, and I need to use a separate app that allows for installation of what are called split APKs. So to do that, I'll go to the F-Droid website and search for an app called SAI, which I'm assuming is an acronym for Split APK Installer. So let's go to F-Droid and page down to the search and type in SAI. And here it is. SAI lets you install and export split APKs. So click on it. So this is the latest version as of the making of this video. So the version you see might be a little bit different. And we'll download the APK and install it. Now I'll download the 5 Play Store APKs. And once those are downloaded, I'll go to the SAI app and select the 5 APKs to install found in the Downloads folder. Okay, so I'll have to give SAI permission to install unknown apps. So I'll have to go through this process again. So again, select the apps from download and select install. In the future, the developers mention they will have a client app where you'll be able to install and update official Play Services apps and won't need to deal with split APK installation manually. But until that happens, you can get the latest releases of these files from the GrapheneOS website. Okay, everything is installed. You can see the Play Store is on the phone, and if we go to a list of applications, you can see that Play Services, the Play Store, and Services Framework are all there. The developers mentioned you should give a battery optimization exception to Google Play Services for features like push notifications to work properly in the background. So to do that, we select Play Services, Advanced, Battery Optimization, and select All Apps. Now page down to Google Play Services and select Don't Optimize. Finally, the developers also mentioned that you should open the Play Store app and press Sign In to trigger initialization. This will mimic the initialization work done by the stock Android setup wizard. So signing into an account is optional for this step. To get paid apps to work, you have 2 options. So the first is to download and install the Aurora Store. I have a full F-Droid and Aurora Store installation and tutorial video linked to in the show notes. This app allows you to install apps from the Play Store without having to sign in to a personal Google account. If you do decide to sign into your personal Google account, you can use Aurora Store to legally download apps you previously paid for. Most of those apps will pass their paid license checks using this method, but some won't, which will force you to use the second method. The second method is to sign into the Sandboxed Play Store. Here again, you can legally download apps you previously paid for, but in my experience, all the apps that I've paid for do pass their license checks when using this method, regardless of what check method the app uses. So this doesn't always occur again on the Aurora Store. Again, if you sign into a personal Google account in the Play Store, you will be giving up some privacy. So for example, I know when I have done this, I immediately get an email from Google congratulating me for buying my particular model of Pixel phone. If you ever want to delete the Sandboxed Play Services, then go to Settings, Apps and Notifications, All Apps, and then find the 3 apps and uninstall them. It's that simple. Now I can delete the secondary profile if I wish. And to do that, pull down the notification tray, click on the profile icon, switch back to owner. Again, click on the profile icon, more settings, click the sandbox profile, and delete user. So that concludes the video. I hope you found this useful. My channel is just starting out, so if you like the content, please subscribe as it really helps and provides encouragement to make more. If you have any questions, post those in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, do the privacy community a small favor and let us know if you've installed GrapheneOS Sandboxed Play Services and what apps did or didn't work with it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.